What's going on, y'all? I'm back. It's DB the Prophet here, and I wanted to shoot the part 2 of my deconstruction from Christianity. Today I am going to get into some of the historical issues that I have with it, and some of the other issues that I have with certain texts, certain claims. But I really want to talk about my experience a little bit more, because I feel like there's going to be a lot of people who can relate to that experience. I feel like I understand why people do it. Like, I understand why. I can understand why people who don't have the opportunity to find a faith on their own have frustrating experiences, especially when the faith is forced on you abusefully. You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of people don't realize that, and this is normal back then, so it's like I'm not even trying to apply no pressure to the parents and the people who feel like, man, I had to raise my child with a set of values, and this is what I was given to work with. You know, I don't have all these complex philosophies that I could explain. You know what I'm saying? So, like, I get that part, but at the same time, you know, my experience was that most people engaged in that same, what I call logical fallacy, which is like they come from this place of moral superiority, and it ends up being something more about social class than anything else. Like, it's not that they more caring or that, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like most people are involved in the faith because it gives them a social circle. It gives them a sense of social validation with a group of people, because human beings need to feel connected. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of people, especially regular working people, they don't feel appreciated by the companies that they work for. So they get to be in a position where they get to, you know, be a part of the choir or be a part of, you know, some organization connected to the church and receive social recognition for being important, right? So there's a lot of psychological elements being deployed that create control mechanisms for the faith. I'm going to tell you another thing too, and if you grew up in a Christian family like I did, you're definitely going to relate to some of the stuff I'm talking about in this video. So another thing was, when I was younger, like 12 years old, I started questioning Christianity, and I had a lot of questions, but this started off as something innocent. It wasn't about me trying to rebel against my parents. It wasn't about, I just wanted to not, you know, like, I just wanted to do bad things. I genuinely was curious about certain things that didn't make sense to me. Like, for example, the idea that we are born into sin. We are born with flaws, right? And we have to just deal with the fact that we were born this way. And it's like, Christianity makes the argument that sin enters the world because essentially Eve gets her husband to be deceived and to disobey God's commandment, which was not to eat the apple. And to me, that's a bizarre story, because if Adam didn't know or didn't have the knowledge of good and evil, then how was he in any way free to ultimately make a choice regarding the matter if he did not know the difference for himself between good and evil? How could Adam have even known that disobeying God was bad? He knows that it's not what he was told. So it's like, does God want us to follow him? Like, these are the questions I have for my parents. I'm like, does God want us to follow him, not because we understand the instructions and we can assess for ourselves that what we are being taught represents good values, or does God just want us to behave like sheep, which is what we were described as in the Bible, us being sheep, or likened to a sheep, which is a very dumb animal, right? That is it's a animal that can be easily herded, right? An animal that has to be guarded because it has relatively no defense mechanisms, to protect itself. It's a weak animal. And this is what you are compared to in the Bible. And then when I also, when you look at, this is something that I thought was a contradiction to what I call mainstream American Christianity, which is like, it's all about monogamy. It's all about following the laws of the land. It's all about serving the church, serving the woman, so to speak, being a civil servant. Whereas in the Old Testament, which is where we accumulate most of the stories, right? And it's like, okay, well, there's always been the argument of like, oh, well, people will say, well, we're not under the Old Testament anymore. Okay, so can we throw out everything in the New Testament? And people will say, no, we can't. But nobody can clarify what we're supposed to take from the Old Testament into the New Testament and where the lines are drawn between what we're supposed to listen to in the Old Testament and not. What we do know from the Old Testament is they lived in a very hyper-masculine society. They had men who were war generals, conquerors, kings, landowners, slave owners. They had multiple wives, they had concubines, and one of the things that I thought was baffling was in American Christian culture, there's so much that is spoken about monogamy and having one wife. Even though, hold on, let me see. I thought this dude was about to hit me. I was about to say, even though we know in the Old Testament, men who were considered to be revered by God, who were men after God's own heart, David, Solomon, these people didn't have one wife, and they were never considered evil, wicked, or sinners merely because they had more than one wife. So I would really love for people to rationalize these kinds of things. I had these questions extremely young. And then on top of that, right, Jesus says in the New Testament, I did not come to abolish the law, but to fulfill it. So it's like, so what does that mean? Jesus was a Jew. Jesus wasn't a Christian. So it makes you really wonder when you have a lot of these questions. If you have these questions, it makes you really wonder what's true and what's not true. Another thing is that, conscientiousness, open-mindedness is strongly discouraged by the church. And I think that there's something harmful about some of the orthodoxy that is attached to the church, because it just doesn't make sense in the world that we live in, right? So like, let me see if I can give you another example of that. So, well, first, I want to bring up another example of something. So I'm going to come back to that. Whenever someone tries to use critical thinking as a way to challenge something in the church, it's frowned upon as though trying to understand something is bad. You'll see a lot of people will say like, or they'll use reasons like, you need to strengthen your faith in God. And it's like, instead of providing you with reasons so that you can understand for yourself, they tell you to just rely on increasing your belief, as though that's not a long-term solution to being able to observe the world around you and make reasonable conclusions that is going to guide you in, right, overcoming things that you might face along your journey. So I don't know. I mean, what do you guys think? Do you guys feel like you've had this kind of an experience? Did you have these same kind of questions growing up in the Christian faith? Let me know in the comment section. I really want to hear from you. Sorry, I ran out of storage, but as I was saying, please smash the like button if you like this video and you feel like this was a good conversation that we just kicked off. Hit the subscribe button if you want to get notifications for these videos, and make sure you guys follow me on my socials at _DB the Prophet on Instagram, DB the Prophet on Twitter. And I'm gonna keep making these videos and keep this conversation going. Other than that, y'all, I'm gonna catch y'all on another video. Probably gonna be back on YouTube later today. So we'll see if something comes up that I feel like we want to talk about. But until then, I'm gonna catch y'all in the next video, guys. All right, peace.